Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So.
I vote red.
Honorable Daniel So votes red. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Otto So votes green via text. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.
I vote red.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes red. Honorable Edison Winika. Honorable Edmund Yazzie.
Red.
Honorable
Winika
Edmund
votes
Yazzie.
green.
Honorable Edmund Yazzie votes red. Honorable Edison Winika votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
Delegate Yellowhair votes green.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Eugene So. Pro Temp Chair.
Green. Green.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Pro Temp Chair, with a vote of 13 in favor, 10 opposed. Pro Temp Chair not voting.
Thank you for the roll call. With that, tabling motion passes with 13 in favor, 10 opposed, pro temp not voting. Thank you very much, colleagues. I give gavel back to Chanela, Speaker Seth Damon.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Thank you very much, Honorable Vince James, for taking over the helm there on legislation 006-21. That, colleagues, continuing on agenda. If you're just joining us now, or you've been with us, we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 items on the agenda. With that, colleagues, remember the time now is 10:14 p.m. We roughly have about an hour and 46 minutes left time frame for us to discuss these legislations moving forward. We are still on old business. That legislation 006-21 is tabled. It looks like the sponsor will probably move that forward tomorrow. But we'll go ahead and go on to item number B under old business, which is legislation 0014-, sponsored by Manager Charles Rubin, co-sponsored by Honorable Slater.
Speaker.
Yes.
Daniel So.
Chairman Daniel So, good evening.
Good evening. Ado Sanantay for going this far, but I'd like to make a motion for a consent agenda to where the balance are basically, there's 3 legislation that's going to go to the council, and we just act on it to send it to the council. Legislation, where is it? 17, 12, and then the others are NABI legislations.
Also 11.
let's see, 12,
It would be item number A under new
17.
business, item number B
Yes.
under new business, and item number E, which is 12,
Yes.
16, and 11.
Yes, I'd like, and then the other for Navi is the final authority. I'd like to also include those.
In your consent agenda? Chairman Daniel,
Yes.
so are you motioning to have one consent agenda including item legislation 0011-21, 0012-21, and 0017-21? And then on a separate amendment, you're asking for a second consent agenda regarding the rest of the Naabik'íyáti committee legislations that are final authority? Or are you asking for
Yes.
all of them to be combined into one consent agenda?
Yes. Thank you for finishing my sentence. That's great.
Okay, sorry.
Second. Eugene, so.
With that, colleagues, there's a motion in place for legislation 0012-21, 0017-21, 0011-21, and then also including 0019-21 and 0020-21. A motion is by Honorable Chairman Daniel So, and second, I think it was Honorable Eugene So. Is that correct, Honorable Eugene So?
Oh,
colleagues, any discussion on amending the agenda? Chairman Inyo?
I think 11-21 needs some discussion.
Which one?
11-21.
So you're
That
wanting
needs
to
some
take that off the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. That needs some further discussion.
all right. What?
And also 17-21 also, because there's some questions regarding the balances of each chapter.
So you're wanting to take off 17 as well?
Yes.
Okay, any other comments, questions, colleagues?
Speaker, this is Delegate Charles Newton.
Yes, Madam Chair, good evening.
Good evening, Speaker. I'd like to remove legislation 19-21 as well.
19-21 as well. Okay, any other comments, questions, colleagues?
Yes,
Chairman Henio, go ahead.
I think 12-21 there was a lot of discussion regarding the charter. I don't know how my colleagues feel, but there might be some more discussion on that piece.
So you want to take 12 off too as well, Chairman Henio? Chairman Henio?
Thinking,
As of right now, Chairman Henio, as of right now, Chairman Henio, there's 12 and 20 that are on a consent agenda right now. Oh, I don't know if you took 12 off. Chairman Henio?
Okay, well, I just thought I'd bring that up. There's no objections from my colleagues.
Okay.
Just to go down. D12.
Thank you. With that, colleagues, at this time, the consent agenda is by the motioning party, Chairman Daniel So, second by Honorable Eugene So, would be 12 and are 0012-21 and 0020-21. Any other comments, questions on amendment number 1?
Trigger my second that. Thank you.
Hey, now there's no second. Chairman Daniel, so is motion party. Is there a second?
I'll second, Speaker.
Second by Chairman Naabik'íyáti. Colleagues, you have to remember that this legislation, if this passes, this would be the first item under new business, but you have to remember that we are still on old business, and we are still going to go to 0014-21 first after this. Any other comments, questions?
Speaker, this is Delegate Crotty.
Yes, Madam Chair, good evening.
Thank you, Speaker. I am trying to write down all these numbers. Can you tell me what was motion now? What are we doing now? I heard a motion.
This is what's happening. Chairman Daniel So is motioning to what's collectively trying to put all the legislations that are on the agenda after or under new business on a consent agenda. Unfortunately, as you know, the consent agenda, if any one delegate requests for any one of those legislations to be removed, they're automatically removed. So at this time, Madam Chair and Naabik'íyáti, under new business, this motion by Chairman Daniel So and second by Honorable Edwin Yazzie is for 2 legislations to be on the consent agenda. That is legislation 0012-21 and legislation 0020-21. So those would be the first items that we would go to on new business if this amendment passes. But again, I did state that we are currently still in old business. So we would, even though if this amendment passes, we would still go to legislation 0014-21 first and then go to new business. Unless the motioning party changes that.
Speaker, this is Delegate Crotty.
Modification. Yes, Madam Chair, I'm Crotty.
Thank you, Speaker. Were any of these legislations added to the agenda when the agenda was adopted, or I'm trying to pull up the original, or were these legislations that were posted within the 24 hours? Thank you, Speaker.
Madam Chair, Emma Crotty, the only legislation that was added to the agenda this morning was legislation 0011-21, and that's not included in the consent agenda. Legislation 12 and 20 that are on the motion right now were both posted 24 hours in advance.
Thank you, Speaker.
Yeah. Okay, with that, colleagues, any other further comments, questions on amendment number 1 or amendment to the agenda? And suspend the full rules. If there are none, once, twice, 3 times, go to board.
Honorable Elmer Begay.
I vote green.
Honorable Elmer Begay votes green. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. Honorable Paul Begay. Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
Key Allen votes green.
Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
I vote green.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes green.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton votes green. Honorable Amber Canespa Crotty.
Delegate Amber Canespa Crotty votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Amber Canespa Crotty votes green. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr.,
Green.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. Honorable Mark Freeland,
Green.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona,
Malone votes green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Jamie Henyo,
Henry votes green.
Honorable Jamie Henyo votes green. Honorable Vince James,
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Rick Nez,
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Carl Slater,
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Slater votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr.,
Green.
Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. votes green. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.,
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Charlene So,
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So,
I vote green.
Honorable Daniel So votes green. Honorable Eugene So,
Oh, God, yeah.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Honorable Otto So, Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.,
Thomas Walker votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Honorable Edison Winika,
Green.
Honorable Edison Winika votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazi,
Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazi votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair,
Delegate Yeller votes green.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Paul Begay, Honorable Otto So, Honorable Paul Begay votes green via text. Speaker, with the vote of 22 in favor, 0 opposed, Chair not voting.
Hey, thank you very much. 22 in favor. My little agenda here. 22 in favor, 0 opposed. Chair not voting, motion carries on the consent agenda amendment. That, colleagues, let's continue on down. We are on old business still, legislation 0014-21. Mr. Rico, could you give us a recap? We do have a motion and a second. This legislation was tabled and sponsored by Madam Chair Charles Newton. Second, co-sponsors by Honorable Slater. Mr. Rico, floor is yours.
Mr. Speaker, members of the Naabik'íyáti Committee, tracking number 0014-21 in action relating to the Naabik'íyáti Committee supporting New Mexico Congresswoman Deb Haaland to be appointed as Secretary of the Interior, U.S. Department of Interior under the President Joe R. Biden administration. There is one committee report, and that committee report is from the Naabik'íyáti Committee dated February 11th, 2021. Legislation was tabled with one pending amendment. Amendment number 1, page 3, line 9, add new section as follows, underscore recommendation. These recommendations come with the recent signing of Not Invisible and Savannah's Act in mind. Implementation of both of these acts can be strengthened with these recommendations. The following recommendations are for the Navajo Nation Naabik'íyáti Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee, Missing and Murdered Diné Relatives, MMDR, jurisdiction, regulatory changes, protocol, funding, healing, data infrastructure, research, training, consultation, programmatic support, directives to Operation Lady Justice. 1, jurisdiction. A, create an exemption from the Tribal Law and Order Act, TLOA, criteria to exercise increased legal and criminal jurisdiction over non-members
who overstrike, perpetrate crimes in the Navajo Nation. B, support and fund intergovernmental agreements that cross multiple jurisdictions on issues that arise throughout an active case of a victim. 2, regulatory changes. A, increase access to victim support programs across multiple jurisdictions for victims and immediate next of kin. 3, protocol. A, make changes in the management protocol to increase Navajo Nation access to federal and state agencies and programs intersecting in any part of an active case of a Navajo victim. B, align protocol on missing and murdered Diné relatives issues across state, federal, and Navajo Nation government agencies, programs, and jurisdictions. 4, funding. Prioritize funding for the tribes to build capacity to address the full scope and consequence of this crisis. For example, funding the Navajo Nation Naabik'íyáti Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee / Missing and Murdered Diné Relatives Data Institute. B, coordinate funding across agencies, programs, and the agencies and programming across all jurisdictions intersecting with any part of the life of case of a Navajo victim. 5, healing focus. A, fund appropriate research on the effects of historical trauma and its link to the missing and murder among the Navajo people. B, create a MMIP, victim-centered funding framework that prioritizes healing from an indigenous perspective. C, support and fund Navajo historical trauma-informed training, advocacy, and response for communities, educators, healthcare workers, and the criminal justice system. D, fund tribal criminal justice infrastructure such as staffing, court buildings, intervention and healing programs, legal aid, law enforcement, victim services program, police substations in remote areas. E, support and fund a Navajo Nation Naabik'íyáti Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee / Missing and Murdered Diné Relatives Program and Data Institute. 6, data infrastructure. A, amend data management access protocol across all agencies and program intersecting with any part of the life of a case of a Navajo victim, regardless of where the incident occurred. B, mandate and fund data sharing agreements consistent with Navajo Nation Institutional Review Board, IRB, between the Navajo Nation and all federal, state, and tribal agencies and programs with data relevant to the missing and murdered Diné relatives crisis. C, identify and amend data collection methodology to reflect the Navajo people, coordinating and requiring any researchers, contracted or otherwise, developing data collection instruments to include Navajo critical constructs like gender or tribal affiliations, or like demographic characteristics of perpetrator, including gender, and other important critical variables in the addressing the missing and murdered Diné relatives crisis. D, create a support center data interface for the Navajo Nation to access data from multiple jurisdictions. 7, research. A, support and implement an exemption for the Navajo Nation and the tribal coalitions serving the Navajo Nation from the Paperwork Reduction Act prohibitions on research and data collection under Violence Against Women Act and the U.S. DOJ Office of Violence Against Women Tribal Programs. B, fund focused research on the scope, conditions of missing and murdered Diné relatives and their consequences in the Navajo Nation and among members of the Navajo Nation across the country. 8, training. A, support and fund training on missing and murdered Diné relatives, human trafficking, victim advocacy, and historical trauma-informed response for Navajo Nation educators, law enforcement, social services, healthcare, education institutes, and public housing officials, private businesses who operate on the Navajo Nation and other programs, as well agencies and programs with interface with the Navajo Nation or its members in other jurisdictions. 9, consultation. A, support and fund state efforts to implement and enforce tribal, state, federal consultation policies around missing and murdered Diné relatives. 10, programmatic support. A, support, fund, and expand the Missing and Murdered Indigenous People MMIP coordinator, specifically an MMIP coordinator and team with specialized expertise in the range of issues contributing to and
contributing factors of the missing and murdered Diné relatives crisis for the Navajo Nation and her members across the country. 11, directives to Operation Lady Justice. A, prepare a report on all databases and data sources from all agencies, programs across the federal government and its multiple layers of bureaucracy that intersects with any part of the missing and murdered Diné relatives crisis. B, prepare data coordination framework with suggested protocols changes that directly impact the Navajo Nation's capacity to respond effectively with the federal system. C, prepare a report and present findings and recommendations on how best to implement the missing and murdered Diné relatives MMIP initiative by identifying the policy and legal landscape, including administrative, programmatic, technical, and data collection strategies, priorities, or methodologies that complicate the executive administration's efforts in effectively implementing these initiatives in a manner that reflects the interests of the Navajo Nation. D, appoint Navajo Nation missing and murdered Diné relative survivors and families to the National MMIP/MMNA Task Force. And underscore. 2, renumber, reletter 16 paragraphs, sections, and/or exhibits accordingly if necessary, and this amendment shall supersede inconsistent language contained in any other committee amendment which shall be conformed to the intent or language of this amendment. The Office of Legislative Service, who has noted to the sponsor of the legislation, is hereby authorized to make necessary grammatical changes. This amendment 1 was motioned by Honorable Amber Knaz-Pokrati, second by Honorable Vince James, and the vote is pending. Naabik'íyáti is final authority. This legislation was tabled by Honorable Herman M. Daniels, second by Honorable Pernell Halona with a vote of 14 in favor, 8 opposed. Chairman Damon not voting. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. That was-
You want the lineup or?
What do you want? Shot?
Thank you. With that, colleagues, I need a motion to take this off the table. Is there a motion? Motion.
Delegate James.
Motion, Delegate Daniel
Honorable
So.
Vince James, second by Chairman Daniel So. That, colleagues, any comments, questions on the tabling motion or to take this off the table? Going once. Going twice. Going 3 times. Scoreboard.
Honorable Elmer Begay,
How about green?
Honorable Elmer Begay votes green. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr.,
Yellow votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Paul Begay,
Delegate Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Nathaniel Brown,
Delegate Brown votes green.
Honorable Nathaniel Brown votes green. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton,
Charles Newton votes green.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton votes green. Honorable Amber Knaz-Pokrati,
Delegate Amber Knaz-Pokrati votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Amber Knaz-Pokrati votes green. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr.,
Green.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. Honorable Mark Freeland,
Green.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona,
Malone votes green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Jamie Henyo,
Jamie votes green.
Honorable Jamie Henyo votes green. Honorable Vince James,
Delegate James votes green.
Honorable Vince James votes green. Honorable Rick Nez,
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Carl Slater,
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Slater votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.,
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Charlene So,
I vote green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So,
I vote green.
Honorable Daniel So votes green. Honorable Eugene So, Honorable Otto So, Honorable Thomas Walker Jr.,
I vote green.
Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. votes green. Honorable Edison Wanika,
Green.
Honorable Edison Wanika votes green. Honorable Edmund Yazi,
Green. Green.
Honorable Edmund Yazi votes green. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair,
Delegate Yellowhair votes green.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr., Honorable Eugene So, Honorable Otto So,
Vote green, thank you.
Honorable Eugene So votes green. Speaker, with the vote of 21 in favor, 0 opposed, Chair not voting.
At 21 in favor, 0 opposed, Chair not voting, motion carries. Colleagues, we are back on legislation 0014-21. On the main motion is by Honorable Chairman Daniel So, second by Honorable James. We are actually on amendment number 1, and on amendment number 1, that is held by Madam Chair Amber Crotty, second by Honorable James. And on the amendment number 1, I don't have anybody lined up in the queue at this time. Any comments, questions on amendment number 1? Oh, actually, before I do that, let me go back to Madam Chair Amber, or Madam Chair Charles Newton. Madam Chair Charles Newton, on the tabling motion, you have 5 minutes. Off the table motion, sorry. Just for a recap.
Thank you, Speaker. As a recap, colleagues, I did present this legislation to the Naabik'íyáti Committee, asking us to support New Mexico Congresswoman Deb Haaland to be appointed as the Secretary of Interior. As many of you know, she had started her confirmation hearing this week. Many of us have been receiving text messages asking us to help in reaching out to Congress and also to our senators, asking them to confirm her. Ms. Haaland, Congresswoman Haaland did her presentation this week. She did it in a very eloquent way. She talked about her differences, the differences between being a secretary and also being an elected official, which many of us are probably well aware of. But I am going to ask my colleagues at this time to vote red on this amendment. It's not that I don't see this amendment as being worthy or important. It's just, it's a matter of the legislation looking like tit for tat. And so I'm hoping that we can go back to the original legislation and vote on the original legislation as is, where we're supporting the confirmation of Congresswoman Deb Haaland. The amendment that has been provided to us, that I just think that, again, I do see it as being important. However, as a matter of making a strong statement of whether we support her here in Navajo or not is more important at this time. And later on, we can have her come out or invite her out, and we can talk to her about the priorities that we have, which I feel at that point this amendment would fit perfectly into a legislation detailing what priorities we have in place or what priorities we have here on the Navajo Nation. Previous discussions, I know that there was issues of roads that were brought up. There were also other issues that delegates were concerned about. Barriers was another one. But in that situation, all I'm asking for is that we pass this legislation with no amendments, just making a clear statement that we are in support of her confirmation, and then have a second legislation where we can talk about the issues that we would like her to take into consideration. So I do want to remind my colleagues here at this time, per the statement that she made, the role of a congresswoman in one district in the country is much different than the role of a secretary who is fighting and working for every single American and all of our public lands across the country. Those are two different things. I recognize that. Those are statements made this week at the confirmation hearing for Congresswoman Holland. The last thing I do want to point out is President Niaz and Vice President Leiser also sent a letter supporting the confirmation of Congresswoman Deb Holland. I'm hoping that we can also send a similar support from Council on behalf of the Navajo Nation as stated within our code. So with that, I stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, let me go to Madam Chair Amber Crotty. Madam Chair, on the amendment.
Thank you, Speaker.
Request, just do a follow-up on the amendment.
Thank you, Speaker. And as stated before, I stand with the amendment. Actually, it's somewhat frustrating. So the work of this amendment is a work and symbolizes some of the work that Representative Holland has been able to do in a bipartisan way. There's not a lot of legislations or laws that have been passed with bipartisan support in recent history, especially under the last administration, where Native women, children, and families were taken into consideration. And that work should be honored. I think it also sheds light into some of the advocacy that Representative Holland has in using as not only a representative, but working with the different houses to get the bill, Savannah's Act and Not a Visible Act, through Congress. I don't understand the argument where we're being asked as delegates not to make amendments to legislation. Because if you don't want an amendment to the legislation, then maybe don't sponsor legislations. Because I have a right as a delegate to bring this forward. I think Navajo Nation, our voices should be included into this. And I continue to look forward to the conversation with Secretary Holland in her nomination, in reviewing of what's being said and some of the challenges that she'll face. But I think it's a strong argument that not only Navajo Nation take a strong stance on where we need to see support within the Department of Interior, but it also demonstrates that bipartisan support. We've done a lot of work, and the voices of the families, the voices of the survivors should be heard. And so I appreciate the support. And I think in terms of how we look at endorsing candidates, it should always be in the lens of being very pro-Navajo and actually not playing into mainstream party politics, because we know that we have to constantly fight and advocate for what is best for Navajo Nation. So thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That on Amendment 1, let me go to the board or to the floor, and I have Chairman Rick Nez on the board. Chairman, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker Damon, Arashananta, Honorable 24th Navajo Nation Council. I would like to request perhaps a modification to Honorable Amber Kennesbaugh-Crotty. I would like to have language added that the Honorable Congresswoman Deb Haaland truly support the Navajo allottees surrounding Chaco Culture National Monument and Naabik'íyáti area. She really needs to come out and visit them, talk to them, hear their concerns. And I think that language needs to be in this legislation here. So if that's okay to request a modification, or we can have a separate amendment to it. And that's my request.
Chairman Rick Nez, on your request, have you worked with Legislative Council to get that language together?
No, not yet. So let me go ahead and email Ms. Bobroff or Ms. Lowell.
Ms. Khan? I don't know if there was an amendment like that readily available, Ms. Barbroff, or somebody else had recommended that amendment. If not, okay. Chairman, so you'll work with Ledge Council, and Melinda, see if we can reach over, put that together. Thank you. I guess there was a request to modify, even though the amendment's not ready, Madam Chair, but if it is available here shortly, I guess I'll come back to you at that time for the modification or request to rest for modification. So with that, colleagues, any other further discussions on Amendment 1?
Speaker.
Yes.
Hey, this is Edmund, sir. I'd like to
Chairman, floor is yours.
Oh, okay. Sorry, sir. All right, thank you. Members of the council and speaker, I was wondering if you also could add the project that we've been trying to work for years now, and now we got Ms. Congressman Haaland that is in a position where she can help us now, even though, you know, I did question her leadership with the Laguna tribe for the people of Alamo, but I think that was somewhat situated out. But Ms. Claudia, I was wondering if you could add our attorneys, I know it's late, that Congressman Haaland helps and support the Nelly project, the Northern Eastern Land Exchange. She is quite aware of it, and I know we're in the talks of asking Senator Lujan our Heinrich to sponsor the bill, and so if it's okay, Ms. Crotty, if I could piggyback off your amendment on this cause for the eastern area. Speaker, yeah?
Chairman Yazzie, again, have you worked with Office of Legislative Counsel on that formal language?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Ms. Barbroff, were you going to say something?
Yes, Speaker, I was just going to suggest that they email me the proposed amendments. I'm the one remaining in the office, but I think Ms. Khan and Ms. Lowell and a few others are on the phone, but just email them to me. That's the easiest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Barbara, for staying there. That, Chairman Yazzie, if you could email that information over so Ms. Barbara could help assist in drafting that language for a request to modify or for a possible another amendment.
Okay, all right, Speaker.
That, colleagues, any other comments, questions on amendment number 1? Honorable Vince James, floor is yours.
Speaker, Janelle, other members of the council, see that the urgency of how the supporting legislation is needed. Ako koto AAI se biga tosi zido le chokot a na sos lini hatit edo be ahozin dole benachet ya hinat ahle kinahal kote not anitan lini nakaya kotinozi koto la hojo pa ye na zila beshma sa andan lini the Naabik'íyáti zotan chokot biket o gastotskin hodinol inligi binniya ako de kwanzata fusion hanata hanana liatin leko. Okay, so with that, I would like to withdraw as being the second motioning party to the Amendment 1. Due to the fact that the urgency is needed of this document to be sent out to Washington to at least give that assistance for a confirmation. Afterwards, we can go ahead and make more legislation amendment request assistance. On this case, so with that, I'll go ahead and withdraw my motion as a second for this Amendment 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable James. With that, colleagues, on amendment number 1, we have a motion by Madam Chair Amber Crotty. Is there a second due to the fact that Honorable Vince James has withdrawn? Going once.
This is Delegate Brown.
Second, Delegate Slater.
Second by Honorable Brown. With that, continuing on. Colleagues, any other comments, questions on amendment number 1? I don't have anybody texting in.
Speaker,
on the board.
Delegate Daniel.
Chairman Daniel So on amendment number 1.
Yes, there's an additional request by Chairman Rick Nez and Chairman Yazzie. And I really feel like if we had separate legislation, number 1, speakers sponsoring legislation that establishes federal priorities. And it might be proper there. That would be my thought. And the Nelly issue is such a big issue that I feel like it's that requested action should be the one that goes to Congress. Because as secretary, she's going to be the one that would be implementing policy. And some of these items, and what Honorable Crotty has suggested, those are within the purview of the Department of Interior. And so that's
that would be my only suggestion. And again, the aspect of the part about the lattes first, and I don't. There's some critical information that Senator Heinrich is basically working on. And I think it's next week that he'll introduce it, that basically addresses the issues in a way to address and perhaps compensate the allottees within that 10 or 5 mile buffer. So in that regard, if we could just hold off on these additional requests, let's just do this amendment that's printed, introduced, and then act on it. These other items, then one, a standalone legislation on Nelly, and then this other one where we see what Senator Heinrich introduces. That would be my thoughts, committee members. And that would be, I guess, Ojo Eya, Shato Banti Kesto Lehigi, Binga Equagisa, Tihasti Toli, Senantai, colleagues. What speaker, the chair of Nabi,
Thank you, Chairman. That, colleagues.
Speaker?
Are there any other comments, questions?
Speaker.
Yes.
This is Edmund Yazzie again.
Chairman, go ahead.
Okay. With what was said by Chairman, so I do agree on Nelly's. It's much a project that is a pretty big project, heavy duty stuff. So that could be at a standalone. So I agree. I'll pull out my amendment, okay? And so I'll withdraw my amendment, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Colleagues, going back to Amendment 1, any other further comments, questions on Amendment 1?
Is there a point of order?
Point of order, Honorable Eugene So. What is your point of order?
The amendment concepts the language confirmation. We're affirming we're support. We're not trying to tell us to work. Thank you. That's the motion, the amendment is out of order to me.
Thank you, Honorable Eugene. So in that, this is something additionally outside, I think this is something that was outside the recommendation of, or outside the confirmation recommendation for additional information that's included. But in there, I don't think it's, I think it's still in order just for the fact that this is a recommendation. It's not saying that if these things aren't upheld, the Navajo Nation would not support the efforts of Deb Haaland becoming the Interior Secretary, but I can go back to Ledge Council or Madam Chair Amber Crotty as a sponsor. Let me go to Madam Chair Amber Crotty first, and then I'll go to Ledge Council. Madam Chair Amber Crotty.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. And I appreciate the recommendations and the comments from my colleagues. It's in the experience in working on endorsing individual candidates. And so you can also, if you can look at the NCAI, although we're not a part of the National Congress of American Indians, you can look at the template letter that they sent out to all of Indian country that have been submitted. And in that letter, you will identify areas that reflect on her work as a congresswoman, and then the work that she could do in a bipartisan role. And so it is very common to have these types of this language included, especially as the Department of Interior plays a pivotal role in Operation Lady Justice, which is spearheading the missing and murdered Indigenous persons or missing and murdered Native Americans. And so the Department of Interior plays a pivotal role. They sit on the task force. They collect the reports. We do tribal consultations. And so it is part of the job of the Secretary of Interior. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. With that, Ms. Barbara, questioning if this amendment is within order.
Thank you, Speaker. Yes, I believe that the legislation is in order with the amendments or the proposed amendment, because as you pointed out, it's a recommendation. It does not say the nation support is dependent on this being inactive. What it basically says, we support you, and then we recommend you pursue this. So I think I believe it's still in order. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, colleagues, any other comments, questions on Amendment 1? Honorable Keon Begay, good evening. Floor is yours.
Yeah, this chair. Ado kudos nantatati. There's Naabik'íyáti kile kadat organization there. Kudos ma legislation in for the other shma kudos amendment la kiki. Again, several weeks ago when this legislation was introduced, I made a recommendation making some modification to this legislation. I was hoping for a comprehensive approach outline of the areas. If we're just selective in only certain area, it really will be, I don't know, it's going to backfire on us to say that, well, you only supported me and you only listed these areas for me to support or work on at the Navajo Nation level. You got 24-21 in the hopper or on the 5-day comment period. Maybe modify that legislation, legislative priorities. Language indicating and directing, requesting the newly appointed Interior Secretary, the Biden administration did legislative priorities, but needs because during her I don't know if you guys were watching, but during her confirmation hearings, obviously they had a lot of concern about her past view about fracking and oil drilling. But there's a statement that she made. She indicated that she's going to abide and work on behalf of the President Biden's agenda, not my agenda, but Mr. Biden. So, Kodo directly, the Department Secretary Holland, Nadine Habenman, she'll say that, well, this is the priorities by the Biden administration. I mean, I was in tune or support to add language and put certain things in there to give her some marching order of everything. But I would have want more if to add like transportations and everything else, natural resource, BIA regions, travel and tour budget council issues, everything. We could pack that in, but that's going to be just a lengthy outlines of areas that we'll be dealing with. Because Department of Office of Justice Service, public safety, because and I'm sure that's where amendment but for this long we have been trying working directly to the Department of the Interior and the BIA directors and the Department of the Interior Secretary. So Biden administration directly to the President's administration, Jiki Aja the 2024-21 Gidik Ashma Aja Amendment in Latin Dog Bahati Jiki Aja Ko Vitasit so go and Aja can directly and then Ajiki within that 24-17 again the we're requesting the Department of the Interior, we're requesting the Department of Transportation and so on. We're asking directly your support to advise and look through these areas, but don't need on bite. So I would strongly request and recommend that we move forward with this legislation as is. Adon the in the Shiniki Adon in the Anjano. It's not that the in legislation. So that's my recommendation, Chairman, to the Council or Nabi Committee members.
Thank you, Honorable Kian, that recommendation. That, colleagues, the time now is 11:14. We have 46 minutes left till midnight that we have to stop, and probably have to stop at least 10 minutes prior for the second reading if we're going to continue, colleagues. Just a reminder that there's 3 legislations after this that are destined for council. That, Chairman Hino, what was yours on Amendment 1?
Thank you, Chair of the Naabik'íyáti Committee, Nation Council. I do agree with Mr. Che, that will be key on the gate. And these add-ons, again, which my Che, Delegate Yonsei spoke about with Nelly and be standalone. I think these areas should be standalone legislation because there are many needs that we need to address, especially with this. I support the amendment here, but I feel that should be standalone legislation after the confirmation. That way we can give a long list of what the Navajo Nation is expecting of the Department of Interior, especially going back to reshaping BIA and getting our fair share of funding when it comes to law enforcement, AD, because when it goes to the area offices, we only get a small portion and central administration, they get a big piece of that pie. And so even enough, I feel that we should just hit this legislation as it was originally, just as a support legislation, but doing a separate legislation with all of the needs that Navajo Nation has with Nelly, with reshaping BIA, being more involved in TIBIC, and so forth. And so, that's why I want to make that comment that I do support what my chair is asking about Delta on the gate, because I know there are other needs that we want to put in here, but at the same time, we need to sit down and put the whole listing together as a standalone legislation after confirmation to say that this is we support you with the legislation as it is. Now we're asking you, after you're confirmed as the Cabinet Secretary for the Department of Interior, this is what Navajo needs now under the Navajo Nation Council. That's the way I see this whole thing processing. So fair enough to this, Chairman.
Thank you. With that, Chairman Hinu. Let me go ahead and continue on down. Anybody else texting in? Any other further comments, questions?
Eugene So.
Honorable Eugene So. And then I'm going to go back to Madam Chair Naabik'íyáti. Honorable Eugene So, floor is yours.
Oh, Joe. Well, I said the same thing as Key and Hinu said, almost the same way, but though it's that's a very confirmed I mean, and hard on next being kid, the Congress, the hike in the door, the door, not on the door, least 8 I not toss the tone. Other than last day, I let being kid, okay, over the 6 That's how I saw it. So now, what the other two council delegates are saying is, I knew what the asked such a big clean last because they knew not only but the in the 80 being the car deal was over the KTs advocate for us. In the Asati had it I sketched on this. But that was my question with out of order to what data. I still debate layman's turn with Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you. That, let me go ahead and go back to Madam Chair Naabik'íyáti. Any follow-up comment or?
Speaker, is Chairman Nez, is that language ready and available? The request to modify.
Ms. Barbara.
Thank you. No, it is not. I have not received anything from Chairman Nez. I hope he has not sent it and it's not coming through, but I haven't received anything. So language is not ready.
Honorable Speaker Damon, point of privilege.
Yes.
Nez.
Yes, Chairman. Or yours.
Thank you. I did send it to our Chief Legislative Counsel as well as Ms. Lowell about 10, 15 minutes ago. So yeah, I believe it is ready. And let me see if I can resend it to her.
Yeah, thank you. That, Madam Chair Naabik'íyáti, did you want me to come back to you or go back to the floor? Because I have one more. I have a new colleague that wants to speak.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. In reading this language that's on the recommendation, I guess the question is, why was this area not included? I mean, I think this is, so I guess that would be my question. You could go back to the floor. Thank you, Speaker.
Madam Chair, I'm kind of confused. What do you mean? What area? Wasn't
So I'm
included.
looking at the legislation, and
Yes.
so it states like her service to Laguna Pueblo, San Felipe Pueblo. There's nothing in this language that has any connection to the work that would support Navajo Nation's position in any area.
Okay.
Thank you, Speaker.
Okay, I thought you were referring to a possible amendment or something. Sorry. With that, then, let me go ahead and go back to the floor. I have Honorable Yellow Hair. Honorable Yellow Hair.
Naabik'íyáti, Speaker, Adam National 24 Navajo Council. Shiro, Ayashi Islande, Kunde Crow, Naabik'íyáti, Naabik'íyáti, Asiat, so Francis. Supported that with what I Njondo le Sonia. Also, the Nitla, Arabaz, and the Lago. She to support that idea. Hello?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, should say.
Okay, at media, yeah, Bayash Tinde, Cross Tlia, Ziki Allen, Armki Allen BK, Asiat Ensom, and Kejo Ilyayat Ensom. A Koshain Hahun Zendole. We need to give her a big list to if she's choose to be a Interior Secretary. Nida Ashani Akunde Sport Ilias 100% Hahun Zendole. Oh, you also know Hahun Zenakite. What are you about? National Tani. Called the largest Indian tribe, which is us Navajo. Let's do it in a good way and professional way to support her and get this thing done for her. And then later, maybe, just like T. Allen said, you've been in the water that 18, a school that we have a lot to help our Navajo up here in Navajo Nation. Oh yeah, see here, Speaker. Thank you very much, Shanat Clini. That is him to you're the Hana Gila here. Go back on mute now.
Can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. With that, Honorable Yellow Hair, thank you very much. Colleagues, any other comments, questions? Ms. Barbroff, did you receive that email from Chairman Rick Nez?
Yes, I did, and I want to say right off the bat that Chairman Nez did a terrific job drafting the modification, and we have job openings here. And I just sent it to Mr. Rico and amendments, and to the amendments email and to Delegate Crotty. I will send it out to the others right now. Thank you.
Pennsylvania communication.
Can you hear me now? With that, let me read the
Speaker Zeno, put me in the queue.
On the Chairman Hinio, I'll put you in the queue, but did you want to speak before I recognize this amendment or request to modify or afterwards?
Before.
Chairman Hinio, go ahead.
Agradecimento pela Chair of Naabik'íyáti Committee, Ado Chianta, 24th National Nation Council of Naabik'íyáti. Just well, they are sending the amendment out. Again, I cannot stress enough that we do need to put everything in order on a separate legislation after confirmation. Ako ay dunakit nila and to the new cabinet secretary, Deb Holland. This is what Navajo needs. Kadeya, with the legislation that was simply put forth as a support legislation to support her confirmation. Yeah. Are you we're getting ahead of the line saying she such and what about the rest of us? We do have our amendments ready too. I have some amendments that I want to put forth. If that works, we're going to go that route. And I'm sure there's other amendments like Bears Ears. That's one of the big
Hello, are we still on?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, speaker.
Okay, sorry, there's technical difficulties. With that, thank you, Chairman. Let me go back to Chairman Ricknez. Chairman, I'll read it into the record and then you.
Okay, I'm back on.
Oh, Chairman Hinio, are you there?
Yes, I'm back on.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, I lost signal here, but I was just saying that there are many needs that we have, and so as far as amendments are concerned, and if we're going to put forth these two amendments before the others, and what we talked about, we're just simply saying let's put it in one big legislation after confirmation. But if that's not going to happen, then I respect though. I have to vote red and continue with the original legislation as it is. But if we're not going to do that, then I think that's my position. I cannot to the Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Hinio. That, let me go ahead and go back then to Chairman Ricknez. Chairman Nez?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker Dana. I did send it to Dana, so it is ready. And Honorable Amber Kennesbaugh-Crowdy, if you would, allow this amendment for the modification to your amendment.
Okay, thank you. That, let me have Mr. Rico read it into the record. Mr. Speaker, members of the Naabik'íyáti Committee, modification to Amendment Number 1. 1, on page 3, line 9, add new section as follows. Recommendation, _, request upon confirmation of the U.S. Department of Interior, Deb Holland, to meet with and discuss the issues of the Alatis that surround within and around Chaco Canyon National Historic Park, located at Chaco Canyon, New Mexico. Request a formal consultation with said Alatis in reference to the 5-mile buffer around Chaco Canyon in means to address mineral rights and jurisdiction. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. With that, Madam Chair, Amber Crotty, request to modify.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. I appreciate and I accept the modification and ask my colleagues to review the public comments that are attached to this legislation. And so I appreciate the modification. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, Chairman Edwin Yazzie has a second. Are you good with the modification?
Yes, sir. Speaker?
Sorry, Chairman Yazzie, you're actually not the second. I was reading my old handwriting. It's getting late in the hour.
I hear you.
Actually, the second is Chairman or Honorable Brown. Honorable Brown, are you good with the second?
Yes, I am, Speaker. I'm good with it. Thank you.
Thank you. That, colleagues, any other comments, questions on Amendment 1?
Chairman Kelly.
McKellen-Begay, floor is yours.
If we are going to be moving forward, I'd like to request a list of an amendment for modification to be added. Chairman.
On McKellen-Begay, who are you requesting the list from?
The Navajo Nation, as we know, Chairman, if you're giving me the time.
Oh, yes, on McKellen-Begay.
Okay, again, I do support, and we've been supporting the allottees on this particular issue. Again, it'd be more effective if we send it directly to the President of the United States. It will be more effective in sense, just as but the one area that I believe that the Navajo Nation really needs to have recommend and helping support tribes to increase funding for road construction across the Navajo Nation. The Navajo Nation only receive, I'm hoping our legislative council is listening, with the Navajo Nation only receiving 53 or 52 million annually, that should be even double or even triple for the Navajo Nation to receive 100 million to 200 million to for road construction across the Navajo Nation. That's one amendment that I'd like to request, Chairman.
Honorable McKellen-Begay, do you have that language ready?
As I indicated, I'm hoping that the Legislative Council is listening. This should be just a simple amendment, whatever the number is. A modification request. And I do have another modification request after the road funding allocation.
So, Ms. Barbroff, there's a request, I guess, the request, I guess, is to, in this case, to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, right, Honorable McKellen-Begay, to increase federal funding for transportation or for Navajo Nation roads or Navajo transportation. I don't know how.
That's correct, Speaker. Because we get funding through the Navajo region on all these BIA roads. through, but directly to the Navajo Nation Department of Transportation.
All right. Yes, Ms. Barbara, there's a request.
Yeah,
And then-
I don't know. Speaker, I will work on the request. I really don't have enough info, but I will put something together. It would be better, and I would recommend that Delegate Keown said he had 2 modifications. If I could get the other one, I can start work on that also.
Speaker, the other modification requesting is through the BIE, Bureau of Indian Education, improvement of the school housing across the Navajo Nation.
Okay, Speaker, I should have those out in, I don't know, no more than 5 minutes.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other comments, questions on Amendment 1?
Coutinho.
Coutinho, floor is yours.
Yeah, nothing to the chair from Naabik'íyáti. And I do agree. If this will go this route, I am in line with Chiche. Don't get challenged again. I need to submit my amendment or modification to amendment number 1. I'm typing it out right now, and I'll be sending it over to Office of Legislative Counsel to be made part of this amendment for my community of Rema. So I'm sending it out right now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Colleagues, any other comments, questions on Amendment 1?
This is Delegate Yeller, Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Yellow Hair on Amendment 1.
Okay, yat eho shiro Ogdakara waterline project should be also funds available through the Navajo Nations, and need funds for it in the nationwide, not just our Black Mesa and Peabody area. So I'd like to request this funds should be available for a waterline project. That water is needed for a connections to people's house and all the Navajo reservation, and I support it with the others. Speaker to Shinatani, 24 councilmen. Hopefully, Dina can work this out. The language should be similar to that road project. Thank you.
So, good evening, Honorable Yellow Hair. So you're wanting an amendment that states that you're requesting Department of Interior to have increased federal funding or funding for water projects in the Black Mesa region?
Black Mesa region and others in the Navajo Nation reservations. And I think everybody still needs water from east side and central, west, south, and north, all Navajo Nations.
Okay, Ms. Barboff, there's another verbal request there from Honorable Yellow Hair.
Okay, Speaker, I got that in the queue, and I will try to get them out as soon as possible. I do believe you're running out of time. I just mentioned that. I'll try to get those out real quickly.
Thank you, Ms. Barbara. Colleagues, any other comments, questions on Amendment 1? We go back to Madam Chair, Amber Crotty. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Speaker and colleagues, for your suggestion. I appreciate the consideration to include Delegate Allen modification for the roads. And Speaker, I'm sorry, didn't catch the second request for Allen modification. Could you let me know what that was?
Increase annual funding, I guess, from Bureau of Indian Education for more housing funding, I guess.
School housing.
Honorable Calambigay, what was it? I forgot. It's late.
I just sent an email.
Did you email it?
Second one is school housing.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. I will, when that modification is ready, that is in order. Thank you.
Okay.
Speaker, this is Delegate Yellowhair again.
Yes, Honorable Yellowhair.
Since we're talking about housing, that we need for also law enforcement. They need a house in the almost in every agency that when policemen are to relocate to others in law enforcement office, when they need a house. Also, even the judges, they need a quarter, and also prosecutor needs a quarter. So this is definitely needed at the judicial side. Otherwise, they don't have a quarter. No, they don't have a house. It causes a lot of dismiss the case. So we need also the Navajo Nation itself for prosecutors' house and judges' quarters and even policemen and law enforcement. And some way we need this build a house for our law enforcement and judges and also prosecutors.
Thank you.
If this could be added on to key elements.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Yellowhair. I guess there was an additional request, Ms. Barbroff, to as well. And if you want to add that in your queue for additional housing for public safety officials, I think that's what it would fall under. From BIA.
Chairman Damon, this is Vice Chair Smith.
Yes, Vice Chair Smith, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, sir. Listening to all these requests, and Department of Interior oversees the Indian nations, not only ours, but also all the Indian nations. I'd like to propose that there'll be no uranium mining, because we feel the effects of that, and we still are in the stages of what took place 1979, 1980, when Kerr McGee in Church Rock, the trailings flushed into the Rio Perco, and it's all the way down from Gallup into Manuelito, Lupton, Hauk, and Sanders, and Newlands, out west towards Holbrook. like to put that in there also too, requesting that no more to oppose that and to clean up for the water that's been contaminated. Speaker, I'd like to request that on behalf of the folks that are devastated by the uranium, and also downwinders too. We've had that to support the downwinders, to support the fact that there has been miners and folks that have been out there, and I think there's I don't know if you can, it's late in the evening, late tonight, but there's folks out there that are saying they're not represented, they're forgotten, they worked with the mine, they've been trying to advocate for their health and what they're experiencing. And that's the reason why I'm bringing this up. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Vice Chair Smith. Did you forward anything over in an email to Ms. Barbara regarding uranium? I know Navajo Nation has put a position statement out for uranium, or banned on uranium mining. And that document still stands today. That legislation, I mean, still stands today.
Just be a brief statement saying no more uranium mining and the effects of it, and the water that's been contaminated that needs to be cleaned up. Just very brief, not lengthy. I don't know what page it'd be put on, but I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, I guess another request in the verbal queue, Ms. Barbara. With that, it looks like we have Honorable Keon Begay. Honorable Keon Begay, we have a recommendation for modification ready. Mr. Rico, if you could read that into the record.
Mr. Speaker, members of the Naabik'íyáti Committee, modification to amendment number 1 on page 3, line 10, add new section as follows. Underscore recommendation, once confirmed, Secretary Holland shall make all efforts to increase Bureau of Indian Affairs funding to the Navajo region for transportation and road construction by a minimum of $100 million annually, and underscore. 2 on page 3, line 11, add new section as follows. Underscore recommendation, once confirmed, Secretary Holland shall make all efforts to increase Bureau of Indian Education funding to the Navajo region for school housing construction, and underscore. 3, renumber letter 16 in paragraph sections and or to this accordingly if necessary, and this amendment shall supersede inconsistent language contained in any other committee amendment to be conformed to the intent or language of this amendment. The Office of Legislative Services, with notice to the sponsor of the legislation, is hereby authorized to make necessary grammatical changes. Mr. Speaker.
Okay, with that, Honorable Keon Begay, is that your request for modification?
Chairman, I believe there's two documents that was forwarded by Legislative Council.
Is there another one? That was the only one, but it has both amendments on there, one for roads and the other one is for housing.
Okay.
So you're good?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, with that, Madam Chair Amber Crotty, there's a request to modify for the language that was read into the record by Mr. Rico.
Yes, Speaker, thank you. And if we could move with the amendment to the vote. Thank you, Speaker.
Okay, with that, thank you. Madam Chair, Naabik'íyáti, second by Honorable Brown.
Yes, Speaker.
Okay, thank you. With that, Madam Chair, our colleagues, Chairman Hinu is, or Ms. Barbroff, did you receive Chairman Hinu's request? Or?
Yes, Speaker, I did, and I sent it out a minute ago.
Okay. With that, if you want to read the amendment from Chairman Hinu, recommendation or for modification, actually. Mr. Rico.
Mr. Speaker, members of the Naabik'íyáti Committee, modification to amendment number 1. 1 on page 3, line 12, add new section as follows. Underscore recommendation. Once confirmed, Secretary Holland shall support the Rema Navajo Band of Navajos as recognized by Congress as a separate federal agency with a direct relationship to the federal government regarding federal contracting authority through the PL 93 638 contracting of federal programs such as law enforcement, roads, forestry, community planning, grants, and contract administration, facility maintenance, etc., and allow the Rema Band of Navajo to keep its status as the Rema Navajo agency with an agency superintendent and status as a government entity and underscore. 2, renumber letter 16 paragraph sections and or exhibits accordingly. If necessary, and this amendment shall supersede inconsistent language contained in any other committee amendment which shall be conformed to the intent or language of this amendment. The Office of Legislative Services, with notice to the sponsor of the legislation, is hereby authorized to make necessary grammatical changes. Mr. Speaker.
Okay, thank you. With that, Madam Chair, Naabik'íyáti, request to modify?
Yes. Yes, thank you, Speaker. If we could vote, please.
Modification with that, Honorable Brown as a second.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, with that, Ms. Barbroff. So let me go back to Madam Chair, Naabik'íyáti. Are you wanting to go to, you're not going to accept any more requests of modification?
No, Speaker, we have 7 minutes.
Okay, with that, colleagues, any other comments, questions on amendment number 1?
Speaker,
Yes.
this is Delegate Hamilton.
Yes, Madam Chair, Charles Newton on amendment 1.
Vacation. 1, 2,
Madam Chair, Charles Newton, we can't hear you. You're very choppy.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize. Just for clarification, so is that 4 amendments that have been added into the original amendment? There's the amendment by Chairman, 2 amendments offered by Delegate Begay, and then there's another amendment that was offered by Hanyo. I don't know if I see the amendment that was offered by Yellow Hair. So I guess that would be 5 amendments. Is that correct?
I think what you're very choppy, Madam Chair Charles. I think what you're asking is, are those one amendment by, no, they're not separate amendments. It's all in amendment 1. There just been modifications to the amendment. 1 by Chairman Rick Nez, 2 by Honorable Keelan Begay, and 1 by Chairman Hinu.
And that was offered by Delegate. So would that be 5?
I cannot hear you, Madam Chair Charles Newton.
I said, was that 5 amendments? Because if you count Yellow Hair's amendment.
Honorable Yellow Hair, there's nothing in the recommendation or in amendment 1 from Honorable Yellow Hair.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know. Thank you, Speaker.
Okay, with that, there's no more recommendations or there's no more modifications. Any other comments, questions on amendment number 1? Going once? Going twice?
Chairman, Vice Chair Smith.
Vice Chair Smith on amendment 1.
Yes, I did make a request for a modification. I don't know if Dana's got that. I'd like to have that in there because that's very imperative to have that put in there for purposes of what we're experiencing down this valley here, and folks are constantly getting tested for, I guess, cancer, and it's devastating us, and that needs to be put in there. We need to have that cleaned up, and it seems like nobody's really taking an initiative to that. I'd like to have that modification there. Thank you.
Vice Chair Smith, Madam Chair, Amber Crotty indicated that she's not allowing any more modifications to amendment 1. That, Chairman Nez?
Point of privilege, Speaker. Continue.
Point of privilege, Chairman Hino.
Again, to the Speaker David and Commissioner. I think if we want to make amendments or something, we have to do our work, and we have to get our computer, type it out, send it to Dana, and then that way it makes it easier. I mean, within a short period of time, I had to type my amendment out and send it off, and then it makes part of amendment number 1. We're running out of time. We can move forward.
Thank you for that recommendation, Chairman Hino. And thank you for doing that for Ms. Barbroff, Assistant Ms. Barbroff. Chairman Nez on amendment 1.
Speaker, I'll waive my time.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions on amendment number 1? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. Go to the board, our second reading on amendment 1. What? We're going to vote on this no matter what, because I called for the vote on the second reading.
Mr. Speaker, members of the Naabik'íyáti Committee, amendment number 1 on page 3, line 9. Add new section as follows. Recommendation. These recommendations come with the recent signing of Not Invisible and Savannah's Act in mind. Implementation of both of these acts can be strengthened with these recommendations. The following recommendations are for the Navajo Nation Naabik'íyáti Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee / Missing and Murdered Diné Relatives MMDR. Jurisdiction, regulatory changes, protocol, funding, healing, data infrastructure, research, training, consultation, programmatic support, directives to Operation Lady Justice. 1, jurisdiction. A, create an exemption from the Tribal Law and Order Act, TLOA criteria to exercise increased legal and criminal jurisdiction over non-members who perpetrate crimes in the Navajo Nation. B, support and fund intergovernmental agreements that cross multiple jurisdictions on issues that arise throughout an active case of a victim. 2, regulatory changes. A, increase access to victim support programs across multiple jurisdictions for victims and immediate next of kin. 3, protocol. A, make changes in the management protocol to increase Navajo Nation access to federal and state agencies and the programs intersecting with any part of an active case of a Navajo victim. B, align protocol with missing and murdered Diné relatives issues across state, federal, and Navajo Nation government agencies, programs, and jurisdictions. 4, funding. A, prioritize funding for the tribes to build capacity to address the full scope and consequences of this crisis. For example, funding the Navajo Nation Naabik'íyáti Sexual Assault Prevention Subcommittee, Missing and Murdered Diné Relatives Data Institute. B, coordinate funding across agencies, programs, and the agencies and programming across all jurisdictions intersecting with any part of the life of case of a Navajo victim. 5, healing focus. A, fund appropriate research on the effects of historical trauma and its link to the missing and murder among the Navajo people. B, create a MMIP victim-centered funding framework that prioritizes healing from an indigenous perspective. C, support and fund Navajo historical trauma-informed training, advocacy, and response for communities, educators, healthcare workers, and the criminal justice system. D, fund tribal criminal justice infrastructure such as staffing, court buildings, intervention and healing programs, legal aid, law enforcement, victim services program, police substations in remote areas. E, support and fund a Navajo Nation Naabik'íyáti sexual assault prevention subcommittee / missing and murdered Diné relatives program and data institute. 6, data infrastructure. A, amend data management access protocol across all agencies and programs intersecting with all part of the life of a case of a Navajo victim, regardless of where the incident occurred. B, mandate and fund data sharing agreements consistent with Navajo Nation Institutional Review Board, IRB, between the Navajo Nation and all federal, state, and tribal agencies programs with data relevant to the missing and murdered Diné relatives crisis. C, identify and amend data collection methodology to reflect the Navajo people coordinating and requiring any researchers, contractor, or otherwise developing data collection instruments to include Navajo critical constructs like gender or tribal affiliations or like demographic characteristics of perpetrator, including gender and other important critical variables in addressing the missing and murdered Diné relatives crisis. B, create and support a central data interface for the Navajo Nation to access data from multiple jurisdictions. 7, research a support and implement an exemption for the Navajo Nation and the tribal coalition serving the Navajo
Point
Nation.
of privilege, Speaker.
Point of privilege. Hold on. Yes, Madam Chair, Charles Newton, point of privilege.
Speaker, I don't think there's any reason for Manuel, although he was reading it very fast and very well, to go on to 12:02. I don't think that there's anything that can be done.
Before, Madam Chair, Charles Newton, there's been precedents that I called for the vote before midnight, so this we will still be voting on this Amendment 1. But once that is done, the legislation is still going to be tabled, are still going to be at Naabik'íyáti committee without consideration, or still with consideration due to the fact there was no final action on here. But we are going to continue on this because I already called for the vote on Amendment 1 prior to 12 o'clock. So, Mr. Rico,
okay, thank you.
Continue.
D, create and support a central data interface for the Navajo Nation to access data from multiple jurisdictions. 7, research. A, support and implement an exemption for the Navajo Nation and the tribal coalition serving the Navajo Nation from the Paperwork Reduction Act prohibitions on research and data collection under Violence Against Women Act and the USDOJ Office of Violence Against Women Tribal Programs. B, fund focused research on the scope, conditions of missing and murdered Diné relatives and their consequences in the Navajo Nation and among members of the Navajo Nation across the country. 8, training. A, support and fund training on missing and murdered Diné relatives, human trafficking, victim advocacy, and historical trauma-informed response for Navajo Nation educators, law enforcement, social services, healthcare, education institutions, and public housing officials. Private businesses who operate on the Navajo Nation, other programs, as well agencies and programs that interface with the Navajo Nation and its members in other jurisdictions. 9, consultation. A, support and fund state efforts to implement and enforce tribal, state, federal consultations policies around missing and murdered Diné relatives. 10, programmatic support. A, support, fund, and expand the missing and murdered Indigenous people MMIP coordinator, specifically an MMIP coordinator and team with specialized expertise in the range of issues contributing to and contributing factors of the missing and murdered Diné relatives crisis for the Navajo Nation and her members across the country. 11, directives to Operation Lady Justice. A, prepare a report on all databases and data sources from all agency programs across the federal government and its multiple layers of bureaucracy that intersect with any part of the missing and murdered Diné relatives crisis. B, prepare data coordination framework with suggested protocol changes that directly impact the Navajo Nation's capacity to respond effectively within the federal system. C, prepare a report and present findings and recommendations on how best to implement missing and murdered Diné relatives MMIP initiatives by identifying the policy and legal landscape, including administrative, programmatic, technical, and data collection strategies, priorities, or methodologies that complicate the executive administration's efforts to effectively implement these initiatives in a manner that reflects the interests of the Navajo Nation. D, appoint Navajo Nation missing and murdered relatives, survivors, and families to National MMIP/MMNA Task Force. 12, on page 3, line 9, add new section as follows. Recommendation. Request upon confirmation of the U.S. Department of Interior, Deb Haaland, to meet with and discuss the issues of the allottees that surround within and around Chaco Canyon National Historic Park, located at Chaco Canyon, New Mexico. Requests a formal consultation with said allottees in reference to the 5-mile buffer around Chaco Canyon in means to address mineral rights and jurisdiction. 13, on page 3, line 10, add new section as follows. Recommendation. Once confirmed, Secretary Haaland shall make all efforts to increase Bureau of Indian Affairs funding to the Navajo region for transportation and road construction by a minimum of $100 million annually. 14, on page 3, line 11, add new section as follows. Recommendation. Once confirmed, Secretary Haaland shall make all efforts to increase Bureau of Indian Education funding to the Navajo region of the school housing construction. 15, on page 3, line 12, add new section as follows. Recommendation. Once confirmed, Secretary Haaland shall support the Rama Navajo Band of Navajos as recognized by Congress as a separate federal agency with a direct relationship to the federal government regarding federal contracting authority through the PL 93-638 contracting of federal programs such as law enforcement, roads, forestry, community planning, grants, and contract administration, facility maintenance, etc., and allow the Rama Band of Navajos to keep its status as the Rama Navajo Agency with an agency superintendent and status as a government entity. And underscore. 2, renumber, reletter succeeding paragraphs, sections, and/or exhibits accordingly if necessary, and this amendment shall supersede inconsistent language containing any other committee amendment which shall be conformed to the intent or language of this amendment. The Office of Legislative Services, with notice to the sponsor of the legislation, is hereby authorized to make necessary grammatical changes. Mr. Speaker.
Okay, with that, go to the board. On
Honorable,
item 1.
Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr.
Delegate Keller votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Key Allen Begay Jr. votes green. Honorable Paul Begay. Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown votes
Point of
green.
order, Speaker. This is Delegate Yellow here.
Yes, Honorable Yellow here. Point of order. What's your point of order?
My point of order is my water line project was not named in this modification.
Honorable Yellow here. When at a point, Madam Chair Amber Crotty stated that she was not going to accept any more modifications. Unfortunately, your modification was not ready and we moved forward.
Okay. Yeah, sir. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Okay, thank you. Continue voting.
Honorable Paul Begay. Honorable Nathaniel Brown.
Delegate Brown votes green.
Honorable Nathaniel
Del-
Brown votes green.
Paul Begay votes green.
Honorable Paul Begay votes green. Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton.
Charles Newton votes red.
Honorable Eugenia Charles Newton votes red. Honorable Amber Canesba Crotty.
Delegate Amber Canesba Crotty votes green. Thank you.
Honorable Amber Canesba Crotty votes green. Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr.
Green.
Honorable Herman M. Daniels Jr. votes green. Honorable Mark Freeland.
Green.
Honorable Mark Freeland votes green. Honorable Pernell Halona.
One votes green.
Honorable Pernell Halona votes green. Honorable Jamie Henyo.
India votes green.
Honorable Jamie Henyo votes green. Honorable Vince James.
Delegate James votes red.
Honorable Vince James votes red. Honorable Rick Nez.
Delegate Rick Nez votes green.
Honorable Rick Nez votes green. Honorable Carl Slater.
Delegate Slater, green.
Honorable Carl Slater votes green. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr.
Green.
Honorable Wilson Stewart Jr. votes green. Honorable Charlene So.
Green.
Honorable Charlene So votes green. Honorable Daniel So.
I vote green.
Honorable Daniel So votes green. Honorable Eugene So. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Edison Winika. Honorable Edmund Yazzie. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
Speaker, question privilege.
Honorable Eugene So, question privilege.
Is this vote any good? It's after 12. Thank you.
Honorable Eugene So, as explained earlier, I called for the vote prior to midnight. I do believe I called for the vote at 11:58. With that, there's been precedents before that if you call the vote before midnight, even though if you're doing the second reading, we still take the vote. In this case, I did call for the vote on Amendment 1. Once we take this vote, it's done. We timed out on our agenda. Legislation 0014-21 is still going to be at Naabik'íyáti committee because there wasn't final consideration on the main motion on Eugene. So this is just final on the Amendment 1, but Naabik'íyáti committee still has not taken final consideration on the main legislation on Eugene. So I hope I answered your question. Continue voting.
Honorable Elmer Begay. Honorable Raymond Smith Jr. Honorable Eugene So.
Green.
Was that Mr. Smith or Eugene So?
I
Yes, I
voted green. This is so.
Honorable Eugene So vote green. Honorable Otto So. Honorable Thomas Walker Jr. Honorable Edison Winika. Honorable Edmund Yazzie. Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair.
Honorable
Speaker.
Jimmy Yellowhair votes red.
Honorable Jimmy Yellowhair votes red. Speaker, with the vote of 14 in favor, 3 opposed, chair not voting.
Colleagues, on Amendment number 1 on legislation 0014-21, 14 in favor, 3 opposed, chair not voting, motion carries. Colleagues.
Speaker, this is Thomas Walker. I
Yes.
vote green on that last
Mr.
vote.
Walker votes green. That changed the vote to 15 in favor, 3 opposed. Chair not voting, still in favor. With that, colleagues, Amendment 1 passes. With that, colleagues, the time now is 12:15 a.m. We did time out on our agenda, which was dated for only having it on Thursday, February 25th, 2021. With that, colleagues, on legislation 0014-21 will be on the next Naabik'íyáti committee meeting. Thank you very much, colleagues. Have a good evening. Kat.
Good morning, everybody.
That was squish. Look on that.
Make some coffee. Start the coffee.
I'm having milk and cookies.
Good night to the Speaker Damon and your staff. Thank you for staying up.